Zachary, welcome.
Ethan, hello.
I wanted to share a quote with you to start. And knowing you and being quite like, I don't know if intimate's the right word, but knowing each other closely over these past few years, and especially over the past year, spending a lot of time together, there's this quote that I heard today, and it kind of reminded me of you. And I thought it was unique that I heard this today. And it goes like, the journey doesn't make sense until the end. And when you look at it in reverse, that's when it actually makes sense.
Just
How
read
does that
that down.
feel to you?
It's home, man. I mean, there's this one quote, like the little, daily quote things that you have, like, on your kitchen counter or whatever. My mom, she has those, and it was this January 10th, 2020. It says, everything's impossible until somebody actually does it. And it's something along those lines, and I'll have to find it. But that's been like the story of my life for the past 5 years, is when opportunity, they say, I've heard it so much, success is when opportunity meets preparation. And I think that quote might get a lot of people to take one step, but they don't have, there is no finish line, right? It's just a consistent, never-ending, running full speed into darkness, seeing glimpses of reflections that you might consider light, and you just keep moving forward. And then I look back 5 years ago from now, and it's just like I never could have pictured. I could have pictured some things, but to the capacity of where I'm at, as well as where the team's at, as along with the struggles of rural Florida and rural America, or just America in general on an agriculture side, have only gotten worse in these past 5 years. So really interesting quote to start this off.
And we're definitely going to get into a lot of like the biochar things that you're doing now. But I'm kind of curious in like the journey of how you got to where you are, because we met in the solar industry. And I guess I want to ask you, 5 years ago, that Zach, did you expect at all where you'd be right now? Or like, where do you expect to be in versus where you are?
I'd like to, that's a good question. I want to go back 6 years ago. So 2019, I'm in Miami. Around this time, just figuring it out, having fun down there, just graduated from Florida State, great sales job. I'm about 1 year in, and things were good.
What was the sales job?
It was with Signature Consultants, and that was my only corporate job, working from 7:30 to 7, really from 8 to 6, Monday through Friday. And massive company, 350 million in revenue. I was right underneath the managing director, who took me underneath his wing, and I really appreciated that. Definitely had a lot of great bosses in the course of time up until 2020, when I kind of went down to entrepreneur route. But it was
What
about
got you to and excuse my interruption, I'm just curious on this because I didn't even know this about you. So what got you to like, you had this big job, right? 2019. How old were you at that point?
20, do some math, 22, 22,
22.
23.
So you're 22 years old, you're working for a large multi-million dollar company, right? In some 22-year-olds' minds, that's living the dream. You're in Miami, you got a job that pays you. You're probably like, the culture there was probably really fiery, but you only lasted a year. Like, what was it, because of your entrepreneurial drive, or what the hell happened?
Yeah, so in college, right before graduation, I'm sitting there probably at a bar with some of my friends, and it was during like the EDM phase, where there was like new underground bass music coming out. And I'll never forget, my buddy Kyle was just like, yeah, we're a bunch of Wubbaholics. And I was like, Wubbaholics, that's a cool name. And so I looked it up. There was no word Wubbaholics. So, the next day in the library, I trademarked it. So I got my first trademark done, and, got that approved, then made an LLC, then started throwing some shows in Tallahassee. My first show, July 18th of 2018, right before I left to go to Miami. And it was exciting, it was a brand and everybody could get behind it. I had kids coming up to me after the show saying the most fun they've had in college, most fun they've had at Standard. And while I was losing money on these events, it's like, all right, the brand's there, you're not supposed to make money the first year anyway, just keep pounding that stone. So then when I was in Miami, I was, in between lunches and at night putting together this company and building for our first real event, which was January 20th of 2019, where I basically told my parents, like, hey, I'm about to put my truck on collateral and I'm going to get $20,000 to throw this event. And they're completely out of left field. So rather than putting my truck on collateral, I used some money that I had in savings and stocks through this event. It was pouring down rain. We lost $10,000, but it was the same type of situation where I had people coming up. Now we have a big following. And that was my drive throughout the Miami aspect. I never anticipated living there for a long time. I anticipated having a record label that would allow me to tour the world and also give these producers a home, because as the music industry, it's cutthroat and there's a lot of mental battles that these producers go through. And a lot of it's because they're, taking on a lot of unnecessary pressures due to substances that they're, using a lot of. Totally. But you're young, you don't know the difference. So that was what really pushed me through until the end of 2019. And I had people along the way kind of give me signs, like Mike, my boss, twice. I remember him telling me, we're talking about like the entertainment versus this career. And he's like, you have one of the most beautiful minds. He said this twice. You have one of the most beautiful minds at Signature Consultants. If you're able to really focus on this, like imagine what you can do, managing partners.
And really focus on Wubaholics, he was giving you advice on, or really focus on Signature Consultants? On
Signature.
Okay, of course.
Yeah. And, but, those were cool things. And then I also had a terrible, like, anger issues. I'd be like punching cabinets or walls when my deals wouldn't come through in front of everybody. I just, like, I was unaware, so awareness comes down the road. And they're like, you got to stop. So I was like, well, I don't know how to stop. So that's when I started to learn how to meditate with that one app. I think it was called Headspace. I don't know if you heard of that. And
yeah, maybe that's Sam Harris's app or something, or
it's like they had like one of those Indians with the beautiful voices that was just like calming in the mornings, and I would do that. And so I started to become more aware. And an interesting story, what happened, which really shifted my perspective. I forgot what day it was, but it was in November of 2019, and I'm hunting because I love hunting, being outdoors. I'm from Central Florida. And I remember I'm sitting there, and for whatever reason, the sandhill crane, like the sandhill cranes that are in Florida, was like squawking, and it's a beautiful bird, and it was squawking, and I counted, and I have it written down. I think it squawked like 90 times in a row. It's like, wah, wah, and I'm like going crazy. I'm like, am I in a matrix? Is something stuck? And so like that same morning though, I was like, well, I don't see anything, but I'm going to try this whole gratitude thing. I'm going to think of 10 things I'm grateful for. So I was like, I see birds, I see sandhill cranes, I see grass, I see trees, I see water, I see God's creation. And I'm not making this up. The 10th thing was like, I haven't seen a deer yet, but I'm grateful for deer. I'm not kidding, man. Like less than a minute later, 2 doe walk right underneath my stand. A 4-point walks out across the field, and then probably 300-400 yards away, a massive buck starts walking out. So I like get down from the stand, I run up to a hill, I crawl up the hill, I lay down, and this massive deer walks 50 yards away, and I never miss. And I shot, and he just skipped away. I'm looking for blood. I'm like, what the heck happened? My sister and my dad pull up. I'm like, I missed. And my sister's like, I got to tell you, I dropped your gun off the second story of our Jeep yesterday. And so the site was, we tested it and it was like off by like 6 feet. And I was
You
upset, but
shot your sister.
yeah, I know. I was like, what the heck, man? You're not going to tell me that? Because it was just, but I remember like telling some of my friends who are like more spiritual about that situation, and they thought it was really cool. And, so like I'm miserable at work at this point. I've been there for like 16 months, and I know that there's something else out there. I got these signs coming in. I had a
So you
mentor.
felt like that, like almost that was like a spiritual sign from the universe, almost like a spiritual mentor if we're thinking of like a hero's journey.
Yeah,
Interesting. Keep going. Sorry to interrupt them. It was just
you're good. So, yeah, after that happened, Thanksgiving comes around, and another mentor who's from my hometown, from our home region, by the name of Steve, worked for my dad, quit the job with my dad. Everybody thought he was crazy. He created a packaging company that if you go to Publix or Walmart and you see that packaging that ag is in, like the strawberries and the blueberries that have the, it's the plastic where it has air in it. Like, you know what I'm getting at? Any
it's
plastic that fruit is in, he made it. He patented that. And he sold it for $140 million in 2018. So I'm talking to this dude, very like man of faith. And he told me, he's like, I'll never forget, I'm on the phone, I'm driving home from work in Miami, and I'm seeing what other opportunities are out there closer to home. And he's like, Zach, you're always going to be okay because I know your family. He's like, I know your background, I know your father, I know your mother, and two of the most genuine people I know. Your dad is the hardest working man I know. Like, you'll be okay. You just got to find the right vehicle. And so I met with him over Thanksgiving break, and December 5th was our end of the year review in Miami. And the number one question was, what do you like most about your job? And I was just like, I'm not happy. Like, here's a 30, 60, 90-day plan on how I can stay and help or find another, because I loved Signature. I loved the business behind the business. I just hated my job. And my boss comes in, and I'll never forget. He's like, well, if you're planning on leaving in 30, 60, or 90 days as a business, we need to plan on you leaving today. We'll pay you for next week. You can come to our Christmas party tonight. Like, we love you, but it's not fair to you or for us for you to just stay around. So, I packed up my bags. That was on a Thursday. That next Monday, I was back at home castrating baby cows and at the family ranch, and that was at the end of 2019.
Did you go to the Christmas party?
I did. It was
Nice.
fun.
So after this, and you decided that you're going to go all in on Wubaholics now.
Yeah, to an extent.
What before we move into there, because it seems like there was a really strong intuitional feeling that got you to leave this job and to put in that 30 days or leave at that point. So I know a lot of people that, and probably some listeners as well, they're probably in a job that they don't like, and they've had this intuitional calling, like, hey, to try something else. How at that young age were you brave enough to like step into the unknown? Was it because of these signs, or was it because it was so painful to stay?
Well, it was certainly painful. There was a couple afternoons, like at the end of the day, where it's just like rejection after rejection, and I was just like on the verge of like some type of sadness, like crying at work. And then I think a lot of it was kind of, I'm a big believer in like God's plan and timing, especially now. And I'll tell you more about that as we progress. But it's when it was also the opportunity, like end of the year review. First question, what do you like most about your job? I'm like, man, this is, I'm going to be honest here. And I was, terrified going into that meeting and like really scared. And I was looking at other opportunities too, as like some event firms and whatnot, just trying to find a way to be more like free, like rather than working from 8 to 6, on one particular thing, my brain loves to go all over the place. Like I was trying to set up, I forgot the name of it, but like a lot of the developers were Indian. So I wanted to do like a Diwali party, a Dolly party. Um,
Dalai
Basically like
Lama.
I forgot the name of it, but it's like an Indian celebration with all of the
Oh, okay,
developers,
okay,
and
cool.
like rent a venue, like sell tickets, do all that down there. And so basically like moving into like December, I was working on the farm all day, like just doing all sorts of farming shit. And but I was looking for other opportunities, and a lot of my friends when I was in Miami and in 2020 were like, hemp flower for CBD was massive back then. They were selling like $400 a pound wholesale. So like you'd be on Facebook and just brokering deals, and my friends were doing that. And they're like, "You're a farmer. Like, why don't you try growing hemp?" And I'm like, "Man, I don't know if I can grow marijuana's cousin. Like it's kind of pretty dangerous. And is it illegal? Is it not illegal?" And the Farm Bill of 2018 allowed for 2020 to be the first year to grow hemp in Florida. And so I'll never forget, this is like where it kind of really ties in, is like it was January 3rd, trying to, my dad's about to drop me off at this tree stand. And I'm like, "Dad, Patagonia's into hemp, Lego's into hemp, the first Ford car was made out of hemp. Like, we should grow hemp, replace citrus," because citrus was collapsing, and it's only collapsed drastically worse since then, but it was not looking good then too. And I was
Is it
like, "We can
collapsing because of the climate, or is it collapsing because of the demand?
It's a hurricane full of shit." You got, back in the
Nice.
day, citrus. Yeah, citrus was the staple for breakfast. Orange juice, like drink your OJ, and people were drinking less of it. But there's a bug that was brought into Florida in 1998. It's called the Asian citrus psyllid, and it's a little bug that eats on the leaves, causes a virus that goes down to the roots, or a bacteria that goes down, and it kills the root system. And the Asian citrus psyllid only eats citrus trees. And in 2006 in Southeast Florida is when they found the first greening disease, which is what the bug carries. Hue Long Bing is like the scientific name, but we call it the citrus greening disease. And since 2006, in 2004, Florida produced over 350 million boxes of citrus. It was a $9 billion industry. Miami was founded upon citrus. Back in 1884, there was a massive freeze that wiped out all the citrus in Florida. Some lady mailed orange blossoms, the state flower, to Tallahassee, and that's what caused the railroad to go to Miami, because they're like, "We can grow citrus down there." So 2004, 350 million boxes. Last year, we produced 11 million boxes. So we're at a 93% loss of production because of disease, hurricanes, real estate encroachment, market demand, and so that's where like the opportunity comes in, and that's what I was trying to explain to my father.
And back to like kind of the original point, which is what got you to leave this company. And it seems like you found something more aligned with like what made you feel more purposeful as well. Is that what I'm getting at? And from a younger age, you were able to like understand like, hey, working for this corporate job is not giving me satisfaction. It's actually just pissing me off. I'm punching walls. You're not like that anymore. Like you worked through that. So that wasn't the only thing, but it was more of like, hey, I want to do something where that actually like makes me feel good about doing it. Is that kind of what I'm getting at?
Yeah. And when my dad dropped me off at the deer stand, this is it. I just read Millionaire Success Habits by Dean Graziosi. I hope I said that right.
Dean Graziosi, yeah.
Dean Graziosi. And it talks about the 7 layers of
7
your
levels
wealth.
deep. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm getting out of the truck, and he's like, "Why do you have to do it big? Why can't you just stick with a company, have a great employer, and have a normal life? Why do you have to do it big?" So I go on that
What a
deer
fucking
stand.
question right there, huh? How many
I'm
of us has
sitting
got
there,
that question?
like, and if you ever get to that question, if you're ever stuck, if there's any way to get away, that's where I find answers. And it's because I'm looking for answers. And so you got to be looking, and you have to be aware. If I didn't read that book, who knows what would have happened, right? So like reading those types of self-development books that you always recommend, I mean, the ones that you provided to us in our group have been a part of the wheel for this year. And, you know, I broke it down. It's like, what do I want to do big? Well, the citrus industry. Well, like, you know, I want to prove my parents, like, da-da-da. And it got down to February 10th, 2008. I got hit by a car on a four-wheeler, and I should have died. And the fact that I'm still here means that I should not be here. Like, I mean, I have a hole in my leg that is millimeters from my internal artery and, you know, very close to my, you know, reproductive groin as well. So it's just like, I got up, I walked to the car.
I know this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that it just comes down to the why, and that was the why for me. It's like, what I want to do big. It's because like you only get one life, and for me, there's like an internal pressure that I have to make up for the fact that not only did that happen, but I was also not and I'm still not. You know, like my parents want me to have like that stability for their own peace of mind, but it's bigger than them too. It's like it's not just this community, it's a lot of regions are affected by the lack of hope. And so, you know, I got all that happening, and then like 2020 is when I really busted my ass with the hemp thing. And you know, when hemp was going well, and Wubba was doing well, and I was a part of an organic weed killing company which was another sustainable product, you know, and so, you know, I'm doing all these different cool, innovative things during the COVID crisis. And I think the best thing that happened to me was, I wouldn't say it was the best thing, because ultimately nobody should take advantage of, you know, loss of others. But during COVID, you know, I was on a farm. I had two headphones in. I was listening to Tony Robbins, Ed Milet, all day long on a tractor, you know, just mowing fields, spraying stuff on citrus trees, completely by myself. And while I'm learning about hemp, the applications for it, this, that, and the other. And we grew a successful crop, and it was actually stolen from us. And which, you know, like, that's just another part of the story. Is like so many different things could have happened that were beneficial, but they weren't because of a partner in some project I was in. You know, I've had hemp stolen. I've had, you know, fraudulent activities happen. We submitted 6,000 of our weed killing in 2.5 gallon jugs to Amazon fulfillment by Amazon. I had 6,000 orders. You know, like, we're thinking we're hit the jackpot. Every single lid leaked in those orders. So we had to like cancel all those. And by that time, my two partners were like, nah, and they own 90%. So, you know, like, wow. I get the hemp stolen, and then Clay, I'll never forget, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And Clay's like, well, I just made $8,000 selling 2 solar systems, and Mikey was there to close it. I was just like, what? So from October to January, I'm in my hemp crop, you know, practicing my solar pitch and learning about the solar industry. And then
did people steal the hemp because it looks like marijuana? Or?
No, they signed an agreement to take our material and sell it, and then we would get a revenue split. And 3 months into 2021, they just said that there was aphids on our crop, and it was all destroyed, but there was no aphids on the day of the crop. We had the whole city out there, you know, harvesting plants. We had the newspaper. Like, we were thinking this is a good thing, and it just did not work out that way. So they stole it, and we couldn't sue because it's an ag product, and there's some like ag stuff, laws, regulations.
It's interesting, one thing you said earlier, which is when you know, almost lost your life on the four-wheeling accident, and you realize like how precious this life is. And I shared a quote this morning that just really connects so well to this. I don't know if you saw this on my Instagram story, but Confucius said that every man has two lives, and the second one begins when you realize you only have one life.
Mm.
So it's really unique because it seems like your second life began after that accident when you realize, like, holy shit, I only have one life. So I really need to just do what I want to do. And do you feel like all of these things, because I'm just going to call it as it is, you got fucked quite a few times, pal. Um, and, you know, do you feel like those things happened for you?
At the time, you know, you get upset, but you from where I've gone to where I'm at now, and for what I still have to overcome, it's if you don't look at it in that perspective, life is, in my opinion, way more hard. You know, if you're looking
Mm,
at it as, oh, you know, another guy screwed me over, it's not me, it's them. Like, I shouldn't have signed that contract with Wobaholics to split it up three ways where they can just kick
yeah,
me out. I should have
yeah.
not have signed that contract with no reassurance on the hemp side of things. You know, I should have
Mm,
checked the lids. You know, and so now when we're doing manufacturing, I'm like, make sure those lids are tight. You know,
yeah.
I get the right HID press heating material. You know, so it's certainly important to do that. And then I didn't. I don't think the second life happened until I got asked that question and I read the book and I took the time to like become more aware of what how blessed I am that, you know, God has gotten me to this point as a complete, you know, bot. Like I wasn't,
Mm,
you know, all throughout college not thinking, you know, high school certainly not thinking. And you know, if I wasn't, if God wasn't in the passenger seat, I mean, if God wasn't in the driver's seat and like I was in the driver's seat and I didn't have something protecting me, there's a chance that something else bad could have happened in the 10 years since I like turned my brain on, really.
yeah.
You know, does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And it's beautiful to see that you have that awareness as well, because as you're speaking, I'm like, you know, you got a lot of responsibility right now with your current position and with Biochar, which we're going to get into in a little bit. But all these things that happen to you are preparing you now. And who knows how big and how much responsibility you're going to have in the future. Because already when I'm looking at and you're telling me what's going on, I'm like, dude, you sound like the fucking president of Florida, like wherever the fuck you are. Like the things that you're doing and the things that you're handling, it's on a big scale, and like you're in the day to day operation. So maybe you know it's you're just in the chop in the wood phase, or like, yeah, this is what I'm doing, but it is on a big scale, and it's interesting. We have something in common, and that is the Dean Graziosi's book was a big transformation for both of us. I was around the same age, uh, maybe a little bit younger. I read that book in I want to say 2016, and I was living in downtown Los Angeles with my friend Cody, and I was kind of having like a existential crisis of like, what is life? What is my purpose of being here? I moved to California because I wanted to get rich. And I thought being rich meant working at a firm and having a suit on and having martinis after work and high fiving about how much money we made that day and driving off from my Porsche 911 with a smoking hot wife. And I learned quickly that that wasn't really what I wanted was fulfillment. And Dean Graziasi's book and doing the 7 levels exercise. I'll never forget it. I'm in downtown Los Angeles at this beautiful apartment that me and my buddy shared. So it was a nice apartment, but we shared it. So it was very tight quarters. And we're sitting on our patio and we asked each other these questions. And it got really deep and I understood. It's like, I just want a happy, fulfilled life. And then it ended up me meeting someone that asked me more questions. And that's what got me to backpack and travel Southeast Asia. And if I never would have done that, DreamState probably would have never been created. I would have never met Zane Jan at that restaurant because who knows where I would have been. I probably would have been doing life insurance or something that I was testing the waters on. So it's interesting that also for me, that book really changed the trajectory and got me to where I am now. So super interesting there.
I think books, like if there's two things that have made me who I am. I mean, this sounds cliche, but it's like, you know, mom and dad, right? My dad, hardest working, most loyal, family, faith, family guy, like faith, family, business. Like his friends understand that, like, these are his principles and his business. He just retired after 35 years with a company, and he still works there. Like the week after his retirement party, he was back in the office. So like now, so it's just like the dude's a workhorse. My grandpa, he's 85, still does the whole family's tax work, CPA, you know. So like on Easter, he's passing out tax papers. So like that work ethic is, you know, built into my brain where like I knew I was different in Miami when I was first one there, last one to leave. And like that work ethic. And then on my mom's side, she taught me from a young age, like, and her grandma taught her, if you read, you're never bored. And so I've read tens of thousands of books, if not hundreds of thousands of books, where it's like, you know, you got a main character in every book, and that main character always wins. And so like you just always, like, to me, it's like whatever that win is, however long it takes. Like a lot of people will say, like, you know, like this is a good success or that is a good success. To me, it's like there's just a lot of problems out there in the world that could be turned into blessings or solutions if you try to fix them. And you know, like Steve Jobs' book, I read that in 2020. It's like that dude was 24 years old and had a, you know, I think he went from $1 million at 24 to like 100 million at 27. You know, like
Wow.
that type of progression, and you know the crap that he went through, and like it's you just but it comes down to awareness, and if you're not aware, I think awareness is a relatively attainable thing if you spend sometime each day. Like I had a whole year to just be in an incubation bubble on a farm. Like I understand that not everybody gets that, but if first step is like being aware that you're not aware and then trying to become aware, you know? And
Being
if
aware
you,
that you're not aware and then trying to become aware. Yeah.
maybe not trying, but training the mind to become aware, you know? Like,
Training,
'cause it is,
trying amongst the same.
yeah.
You said you said tens of thousands of books. I'm like mind blown over here on that. It's just like holy shit. That's a lot of knowledge. And if your mom engraved that into you from a young age, if you read, you'll never be bored. And you know, leaders are readers. I find it so important to continuously read. One thing I've been trying to do lately, I don't know if you can relate to this, is read books that aren't so like just personally development focused. Like I've been reading about history, and I shared with you, I read your favorite book,
Land remember.
A Land Remembered, which I read that book in 6 days. It was so good.
Pretty
And I
impressive.
love a book that'll get me to cry. And that
Yeah.
book got me to cry. And it's funny when I was reading that, it just, all these characters, I just was picturing as you. Because a lot of like there's the way you describe, like you're in a very 21st century struggle of what they're going through, but it's like you're in Florida, you're doing something with crops, biochar, and it was just you're facing challenges and struggles, and it was really interesting. Your story is really fascinating. I want to stay on this a little bit as well. So things kind of hit the fan. You were doing this with hemp. Someone jacked your hemp farm. So Clay Mulestein, yo, far, I just made 8 racks selling solar. And by the way, same thing for me. Zane was just like, you can make 5 grand off one system. And I'm like, one system? And I make more than what I'm making in a month now? And I'm busting my ass waiting on all these rich people in Beverly Hills? Sign me up.
I said,
So,
see ya. You know, I said, you know, good luck with the hemp stuff. Good luck with the weed killer. You know, I'm out. And everybody was kind of confused. My mom's like, you're knocking on doors or go having something bad happens to you. And I was just like, no, it's okay. You know, I'm in St. Pete. And like I said, I had a year of just like training and mental training, learning all the different, you know, attributes of successful business owners and sales. And I do want to point out, like at the end of 2020 is when I met my best friend Charlie Brown. His name is Charlie Brown. He's still there?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
You're good. Well, yeah, Charlie Brown. He's from my hometown. He's a 6'2" black guy, like exceptional man. He's met Obama twice. He was the first African American Future Farmers of America president. He's Boys Nation president. And when we were in Tallahassee, we made a pact. We're going to come back to Avon Park and we're going to do some cool shit here. And fast forward 3 years, I'm growing hemp, and he's like, "Hey, I want to introduce you to my boss. His name is JT." And he's got a really cool hemp project. So I meet JT, and this is a really interesting story. We're driving to my greenhouse, the nursery in Avon Park, from my farm in a different county. And we're on 64, me and him, and we're driving by the Avon Park Airport. And keep in mind, JT's company, American Hemp Manufacturing, was the first federally backed cannabis company in the United States. They helped write the 2018 Farm Bill. And we were approved for phase 1 of this USDA program for $250 million in loan guarantees. So he's telling me all this. I'm getting jacked up because, like, my thought has always been just crush hemp in Florida. We got all this land, like, let's do it. So we're driving by the airport, and he's like, "What's that?" I was like, "It's an airport." He's like, "Is it in operation?" I was like, "I don't know. I've been in here my whole life. I've never been inside." He said, "Turn around." So, all right, we turned around. We walked inside. He said, "We're going to call this home." I'm like, "All right, dude. Well, I'm going to St. Pete. You can call this home if you want." And this group of guys, and with JT at the top, so, you know, it's all about, like, the people you associate with. And JT is a visionary. Like, in his email, it says, "Make no small plans." You know, it's from an architect from, like, the 1800s. And this guy had some massive plans, $250 million in loan guarantees worth, but we had to find sites to build these biorefineries every 50 to 100 miles across the United States. So how do you get money to develop infrastructure on a risky business such as hemp? You got to be able to secure property a unique way. So, you know, we created Florida Airport Management, or FAM, and we pitched this to the city of Avon Park. The airport was about to lose its license because, you know, it's no offense to any city, but there's 112 rural airports in Florida. There's 6,000 in the United States. Most of the airport managers, the manager is also the Bible school teacher, who's also the city clerk, who's also like a parent of 4. Like, they don't know how to run an airport. So we come in, and it took 4 years. It took JT going to like 100 city meetings and getting his face kicked in for the first couple years of it, everybody thinking he was crazy. But as of November of 2024, FAM became the first ever for-profit company to ever get full municipal control over a public use airport. So that means we can design, build, operate, maintain, finance, and manage and execute on anything that happens on this 450 acres in Avon Park. And Charlie is now running that airport. So they're doing all this while I'm in St. Pete. And, you know, I know Clay
You're in St. Pete doing the solar thing. While all this is happening, you're in St. Pete doing your solar thing. That's when we met, and this is all happening in the background.
Yeah. And you know, I could not have asked for a better vehicle to get into outside of solar. Like, knocking on doors, that fast-paced environment. A lot of what I learned in Miami, I was able to execute over here, like follow up, the value of following up, and the value of being organized and following up. That was a massive piece of my sales. And so, you know, my goal is to get 30 deals the first 90 days. I did 21, and 19 got installed. So, like, right away, it's like I suddenly have cash. I'm building this company from the ground up. And I actually left better three months in, against everybody's thought process, to go with another company that was much smaller. And it was really just one dude in a truck. And now that company, Lunex Power, shout out Dan, it's the fourth largest or the fourth most installs in the state of Florida. So, you know, just
What did did you see in Dan that got you to do that, to leave Better Earth and go with his small company?
We met in his garage, and he's like,
Were
"Hey,
you
I'm
not
sorry."
convinced when you met him?
No, I was actually encouraged to go talk to him by another group of sales guys, and I was like, I'll talk to him, but I'm really happy here because Better Earth wasn't just the service, but the people. You know,
Yeah, the culture.
you can't beat the leadership of you and Zambo and Marshall and Chance and everybody in those podcasts, and it was very, very, very valuable for those 6 months because I was listening to you guys when I was still on the farm, and
Mm.
yeah, I met him there, and we went from his garage to a warehouse to another warehouse, and um, so I'm making all this money while they're doing the airport stuff, and I always knew like this is my moonshot. If I get any percentage of this company and they get a 200 time, you know, scale, like any dollar is going to be $200. So I put pretty much all of my money back into the airport to keep them moving because I believed in their mission. They were in Tallahassee, and I was happened to be in Tallahassee for a career fair for a solar, and they're all jacked up. They're in a nice Airbnb, like Charlie and JT and this whole group of guys, and I was like, I want to be a part of this. How much? And I just wrote a check for 25K and put it on the table. And I was like, this is my thing. And 100 and a lot more money later, um, you know, now I'm like running the nonprofit, supporting the airport, and I've learned so much from just what JT has gone through from a governmental and policy change and the legalities between like local, city, state, and federal politics and government, and how none of them are intertwined. And you gotta, kiss one ass and shake one hand before doing it to the next. And then, this person is no longer in office, so you got to go back to this person and remake this relationship and explain to them the difference between, a private airport and a long-term lease that's still owned by the city. It's a lot
Do
of
you tend
work.
do you tend to follow your intuition a lot with things? Because to be in a group of people and be like, hey, I believe in you guys, and just drop 25 grand on the table, and you said much more later, hundreds of thousands of dollars later, was it all like you just had like a thumbs up from your intuition, or was it like the energy of the people that you're just like, yeah, I want to be in these environments? Can you help us understand that a little bit?
I think I will try my best to help make it work. I think it just goes back down to the like the foundational principles like faith, family, good business, and friendships, relationships, and
It
you
just
know
aligned with your principles.
yeah, like I and this is a personal thing, and I hope a lot of people can resonate with this. Like I know that no matter what happens, as long as I'm not doing something like inhumane or unethical, like I have a very large family that loves me. I have friends that love me. Like I can call somebody up if I don't have a place to stay, and I will find a place to stay. And I always have, and this is not what it's not fair to have these types of blessings. So that's another reason why I push myself so hard, is because to me it's like it's not fair. So I want to try to make the most out of what I have and provide opportunities for other people. And
Mm.
it felt so good, and I wanted to be a part of it. And I knew they needed capital to get by, because we were told in 2021, like, oh, you're going to get this record of decision in a month. Christmas comes around. Oh, it'll be January. Now we're in the middle of 2022, 2023, 2024, and there's that one saying. It's like the prisoners of war, the first to die were the optimists, the ones that are like, oh, we're gonna get out by this time. That time comes around, and I
And
used
then
to
they're let
say,
down.
do what?
And then they're let down because it's so much longer after that. Yeah, Friedrich Nietzsche talks about this as well.
Yeah, and it's like as an entrepreneur, I think smart goals are good, no doubt. I've been most of my goals they might have, they might have like happened and been executed on, but they certainly were not on like my time frame. Like they're always on a godly time frame. Like I was expecting, that for this biochar operation to be operating 6 months ago, and it's like I'm still waiting on this. I'm still waiting on this, but I'm not just waiting. It's like I've been working all day on different things just to thread the needle and try to clear out some of that fear, but that fear is always going to be there.
Totally. Yeah, and you had said something that stuck out is like you have all these connections and it's not fair, but it goes back that it is fair because you live in line with your principles. If you were just a shitty person, yeah, it wouldn't be fair. But like it is fair because you live in line with the person that deserves to have these connections and deserves to have this availability to you. So that's something that's it's really beautiful, and for you to even have the awareness of understanding that is beautiful, because I see a lot of people that just expect things like that and they don't realize how much of a blessing it is. And it's something I've learned of being here in South America where I don't have those anymore. And it's a little bit, I'm creating them out here, living who I am, but it's in the beginning it's like, oh shit, if shit hits the fan, I'm fucked. But it kind of keeps me on my toes.
It's supposed to, like, life's supposed to keep you on your toes, and it's supposed to be lonely, like it's supposed to be a lonely road. And I've just, I'm from a place that, I went to Florida State. I didn't have any friends, and it's just like those first 6 months were probably some of the toughest in Florida State, where it's funny saying that now because I thought they were tough. I was in a dorm room, I was still making friends, but didn't have any like real connections. And then, lo and behold, I meet Sean Sharabi. Like what better guy and Clay and Ryan. And it's like, these are friends that I still have to this day. And, like you got to be a good person. It's James Allen, right? Think good thoughts, do good things come to you. And that Steve Maxwell guy I was telling you about, I didn't bring this up, but I think what really, really changed my perspective and awareness was him sending me a YouTube on James Allen As a Man Thinketh. And I was able, for a year to just replay that over and over, like every day. And think good thoughts, do good things come to you. Just got to keep that as a principle and work hard. You got to do good things, like do side, not decide, do side to do these things that your intuition's telling you to do. And as long as it's not going to kill you, every day is a new blessing. Like, get after it,
I love that do side. As you're speaking, it kind of, and I'm sure you can relate to this, no matter where you get, what level you get at, oh, my speaker went out. That's what that was before. But hopefully this is still good. Whatever, we'll be fine. You can hear me good, right?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right, perfect. No matter what level you get at, every day you're almost going to need to even work harder on your dream. And what I've learned is it never really gets easier. You tend to just be able to deal with the challenges and the problems and the opportunities at a higher level because you just built up that skill, and you're not as, I guess, reactive as well to when life like essentially kicks you in the balls, because it happens. And I've really been experiencing this year going all in on my own business and not having any other sources of income, little things, but not having like a job and just going all in on me. And I'm getting kicked in the nuts all the time. And it's just like the universe is kind of just like, universe, God, whatever, infinite intelligence, whatever you believe in that you're listening, is kind of just, the way I see it is it's testing you. How serious are you, pal? How serious are you? Because it's like, okay, I look at it like layers. It's like, we're serious. Okay, that's a good level right here. We're really serious. Okay, that's a good level. I'm fucking committed. Nothing will stop me. That's a whole other level. There's even another level on top of that. And within these levels, you unlock like new versions of yourself, and you unlock new successes, if you will, whatever the fuck success even means nowadays, right? It's I believe it's in the eye of the seeker. And yeah, it's fascinating because there is no end. There is no end, and especially kind of what you're getting at, and the way I see you and the way I see your family. Your grandfather's still doing everyone's taxes and he's fucking 85. Your dad just retired and he's back in the office a week later. It's in your blood, so there's no end. So you might as well do something that you fucking love, right? And that you can deal with getting kicked in the nuts on a daily basis. I really learned this when I was the beginning of this year. I was just like, you have fears, right, when you go in on your own thing, and I had a lot of fears going into my own thing. I was even dating a girl last year, and she was an awesome girl, and she was just like, why aren't you going all in on DreamState? And I just straight up told her, I was like, I'm fucking scared. I'm scared. And she was cool enough to call me out on that. Good chick. And I really thought on that. And I see this a lot with other people. And this year I was going hard for another company because I really appreciated the guy I was working with, Dan Fleischman. And I was convincing myself that, yeah, but I'm going hard on this because like Dan's going to help me with DreamState. And I was making excuses. And then I was like, I'm going so hard on someone else's vision and dream, and that's why I'm half-assing it. But if I go all in on my vision and my dream, better not fucking half-ass that. You sure as shit better not half-ass that. And I see that with you.
Burn the boats.
Burn the fucking boats.
And it's cool. And like one thing about your business, and I told you like in January, I was like, I see the value of you doing this, and I've only seen it get better and better. And if you get anything out of it, it's just like the podcast that you have with people. You're talking about stairs, and like I'm sure a little bit of that was subconscious from the conversation that you had with Marshall talking about the stairs, and with the podcast with him, and you're just retaining all this information, and you're like the next level, or the predecessor of like the Ed Milet and the Tony Robbins, and you're doing it in a very beautiful and intimate way with the groups that you're creating. So I mean, I definitely support everything you're doing. It's kind of like with the shows, right? Like I was like, man, I'm losing all my money, but I got kids telling me, most fun they've ever had. I can learn from this and keep capitalizing on it. And it should be, I see what you're doing, man, and I definitely can only commend you for taking that leap, because I know it's scary too. And talking about reactions, that is a never-ending progression too. It's just like, how are you handling not just the business, but your own state? And up until recently, I've been neglecting, the physiology of my life. I've just been pounding the stones so hard that the working out, it's like, well, I'm not working out because I'm working so hard in the business. And, I'm not taking care of my mind because I only want to focus on the business. And, a couple weeks ago, I had my first real, like, freaking, oh, God, my chest hurts because I'm so stressed. I'm 29 years old. Like, that shouldn't be happening. And, but it's also like, hey, I did party in Chicago for 3 days, consistently, like I would have in the early years, which I would have been able to handle another 3 days. But it's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? Or make the cake and eat it too. You can't be a kid and have all this fun, this, like, whatever you want to call it, this temporary satisfaction, but also want to be this guy that creates these products and solutions that can change the world. And I think, when you think about these things at a younger age, I like in 2020, I remember starting to write, like, I want to change the world. In hindsight, God has given me a vehicle to start doing that, but it's, and then with Zambo, it's like we're doing that visualization meditation, and across the room we're saying, where do we see ourselves in the future? And it's like, I see myself creating a product, a sustainable product that can be touched by everybody in the world. That sounds cool, and it's a great vision, but it's very, very challenging. And it takes, and most important, it's not just challenging from a logistical perspective. It is a very challenging thing to compartmentalize and find peace in the day-to-day, knowing that it's not going to happen today, it's not going to happen in 10 years, and it could happen in the future, as long as you're alive and you're healthy. Like those are the priorities. And if I fix this industry or not, if I'm upset or not, and I try to teach this to the sales guys, and I'm relearning it myself. It's like, whether you're happy or not, whether you're healthy or not, whether you have a loss in your love life or not, like, life is going to move on, and you have to be able to get back on that horse and ride life along with life's progressions, because it's not going to slow down for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it might not be today. It might not be tomorrow, pero I will be champion. I will. That Mexican guy.
That's sick. I don't know what that's from. That's sick. That's literally, I need that frame somewhere.
Yeah, and how do you stay true to that? Because when you're going through this visualization, I believe our dreams sometimes scare us away from actually going towards our dreams, because it seems so big and hairy and far away. And this happens to me sometimes, where it's like, I know I need to like work on the vision, and it kind of freaks me out, and I'll pick up my phone and I'll catch myself scrolling on social media, because like I get overwhelmed by taking the action. And what I try and do, and I teach this in the DreamState a lot, is just like, just take a few swings at the tree. So that'll just be like, even one small act, maybe it will only take 20 minutes, but just like at least chop the tree. So that's what I do. What do you do that kind of, I guess, shuts that off and still is able to focus on that big hairy goal?
Well, I think that's a great question, and it's something that I've really been trying to learn about, like get more focused in what is that goal. Because in 2020, I remember I was sitting there and I'm like, I just want to be a part of something. So I dove in everything, and that was the same thing for 2022, 2023, 2024. And now I have so many different projects going on that I'm finally starting to say no to some, because every one of these projects, and this was where, like, last year was tough. I was going through it. Like, I had all these ideas, and the solutions were not coming elsewhere. And I was always kind of hoping that Marshall said, I'll never forget Marshall one time on a call said, nobody's coming to save you. And that to me is something that I tell the whole team. It's like, this is up to us. And just because it's up to us doesn't mean it has to happen today. Like my dad always says, life's too short to live unhappy. But recently he told me, he's like, you should not be striving for happiness at this point. You need to be striving for contentment. Just be comfortable and satisfied with where you're currently at, knowing that you're threading a needle to where you want to be. And I think mindfulness is key. And fitness. If you can do something in the morning so now I'm doing, like, I'm putting my head in an ice bath. I'm doing my meditation. I'm doing my workout. I'm trying to do as many if I don't have time to work out, I'll do like 80 push-ups and 100 sit-ups and just jumping jacks every morning, just because it's tough, like, you don't have to do that. And if you do it, it is considered tough. But finding and then it's, on the business side, it's trying to get, and it's like in sales, right? You want to get the tough conversations out of the way at the beginning. What do you consider tough? The ones that you don't want to do, the ones that might have a rejection attached to it or a no answer, and getting those done ahead of time. And even if they don't answer, it's like, okay, I got it done. And then, and I think that last note on that question is, when you really hone in on like what you're trying to accomplish, you might have a list of things that would be hard, and if you got them done, you might feel better. But say they did answer and they're like, okay, like, I'm ready to go. Can you start tomorrow? It's like, no, actually, it's going to be a month. And then it might not be a month. So you have all these fearful connotations about, like, these things that you should be doing, but you don't need to do them. And I think that's like, something that I'm going through now is like, well, it's not like going through it. I've been like, at such a peace and a happiness recently, because I like, things are falling into place, but things have been falling in place for years. I've just been very eager to kind of like get started, have that stability, because it's kind of hard to focus on the important thing, which is, the family and, kids and whatnot at this age, when you are not in a stable situation because of your passion to build this business. But if you trust in, God or the universe, it took Moses 40 years, So if it takes me another 35, I beat Moses' record, that's great. And, just having perspectives like that where it's like, things are going to come as long as you do good thoughts, think good thoughts, and do good things. Like, things will come. But it's never going to be on your timeline. It could, if you have money. If you have money, things certainly help. You can hire more people, you can fire more people, you can delegate, you can, speed things up, you can donate to some, Republican Party campaign and then get appropriations from the state. Like, there's all these different things you can do with money. And we actually have a little bit of money now. So it's like on Monday, I was out there doing all this redneck rig shit, and it was just so cool in my head thinking, I'm not getting paid a lot, but I am getting paid to be out here and do something that's never been done. And I think that's like really a cool thing, is like if you're an entrepreneur, find your minimum viable product, the product that can start making you revenue right away. And when you get that going, I think a lot of things start to like fall into place because you're in a better mindset. You're less stressed. You're more focused. But that takes years. It's certainly taken a very long time.
Excuse me. I put my headphones on. I was having an echo. You're hitting a lot of like good points. I appreciate you going into detail. A few things. My buddy Chris has this thing that he talks about, which I really like, and it's this funnel that he created. And as you're talking, you kind of reminded me of this funnel. Because as we're looking at like our big hairy goals and on a day-to-day, you brought up a really good point, which is like it's best to handle the scarier things at first, which I think of. And in today's day and age, there's so many good ways that you can hire an assistant, an AI assistant. You can hire someone in the Philippines to handle a lot of little new tasks for you. And he has this funnel, and he puts all of his tasks in the funnel. And he has columns, and one of them is, can I delegate it? Can I delegate it? Can I automate it? And can I get rid of it? So all of his tasks need to get through those 3 questions before they go to the bottom of the funnel. Once they get to the bottom of the funnel is when he'll actually start knocking those out. And that has been really big for me lately, because I've learned that I tend to do the things that I enjoy doing, but actually just don't like really push the needle forward. I just enjoy doing them, right? There's a funny thing. I don't know if you ever experienced this as a sales leader, but you have some reps that just want to like hop on a Zoom call just to fucking talk, and they feel like this is work. But you're just sitting here, it's like, hey, like, because we have good vibes. Hey, Zach, what's up, brother? But we get fucking nothing done on the Zoom call. But we feel like we're getting something done. So learning to like get rid of stupid Zoom calls from your calendar, get rid of like passing things through this checklist is huge. So I wanted to share that. And one thing that you said, finally starting to say no to things. This has been huge for me lately, because I'm a freaking yes man, dude. And I love building things, and I love being a part of things. And as I've started to like gain not a lot, but a little bit of success, like in the coaching and in personal development and mastermind world, a lot of people want to work with me on things. And in the beginning, I was like, oh yeah, that sounds great. But this question always comes up in my head, which I think is going to be helpful for people. Am I putting enough effort into my own passion right now where I have leftover? I have leftover energy. If I'm not going 100% all in right now, why would I take on something else? And if I'm going 100% all in, do I have time to add something else to my plate? And is my business where I want it to be right now? So I've been learning to ask myself those questions. I had someone that still wants to, and people are freaking relentless too, dude. You say no to someone and they just act like you didn't say no, and they keep pushing you on it. It's interesting. But I had someone wanting to start a company around running with me because they saw that I was running, and it seemed like a great idea. So at first, like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Let's roll. And I was just like, I had to ask myself those questions. I was like, okay, we need to do all this content for this running company, but am I doing that right now for DreamState? No, I'm not at 100% yet there. So I'm learning to say no to things until I can take on, in addition to me going all in on like my passion and what I'm doing. And then from there I can start adding to it. Does that kind of relate to you at all, or what do you think on that?
Big. You have to be able to do one thing before you can do anything. And that is something that if you are an entrepreneur, you might have like what I've had. Like at one point, I was COO of 4 companies: hemp, biochar, nonprofit,
Jesus fuck.
airport, all at once. And it's like, and JT was the CEO of 5 companies, including the main one. And me and him were both, like sprayed roaches, like trying to make all this stuff happen. But if you can do one thing right and do one thing effectively, what you build there that I think is extremely powerful is credibility. If you can do one thing right, people will gravitate to you and support you to do another thing right. But there's few people that are going to come and save you to get to that one thing. You have to be the one to execute that one thing first, or at least be a part of that one thing. But doing one thing and then supporting another thing and then another thing, but you still have your one thing, and it'll get there, but it's not there yet. Like eventually you just get like it's like one of those toys as a kid where you're just like pulling around like a train with all these, cabooses and stuff behind it. And, you're just dragging this thing along. And it's like, if you can just get all that done and focus on, laying the tracks for that for that engine, then you're going to have people will pay to be a part of that train. But you got to make the train first. And you told me about the productivity funnel probably a couple months ago, and I found it. I'm looking back and I'm just so happy to see that, like I have invoices, budgets, operations, equipment, rentals, SOP creations, QuickBooks, like a whole list. And it's like I have marks, like check marks on things that have been fixed since then. And there's also things on here that are, training and like SOP creation, like that will come when we have an operation and we're making money and we have this impact and all these things, and somebody's going to be like, oh, you don't have SOPs? Like, here, take mine. Or we'll pay somebody to do it because it's important. But as a CEO, I should not be focusing on SOP creations. I should be focusing on getting the revenue, getting the equipment, getting the off-takers, being in the front, the front person of this thing. And, that just requires doing one thing right. And we did do one thing right recently, which is we created the biochar. And that is what's allowed us, that's what's gotten people to, donate, invest, and provide support, because we did it. And it costed $20,000 to do it, but we did it. And that's what's, going to get us going in the next couple of days.
Huge. And I want to move into that next. And the last thing I'll say on this is, as you're talking, it kind of reminds me, just to add on to, and I guess finish this point, where if you're doing a ton of things and you're getting C's and maybe even B's and D's in all these categories, like, what the fuck is the point? And are you a C, D player? You just, you feel good because you have all these responsibilities but me personally, I'd rather really just get straight A's in one thing. And once I've handled this so well that I'm almost unconsciously now getting straight A's in this is because I've become just such a Jedi in it. Then I'll add into it. Like I have an abundance of ideas, and I have to kind of calm myself down. And sometimes like my left brain or maybe that other voice comes up is just like, yeah, but are you lazy? Why don't you just do all this shit? Why don't you start that supplement company that'll help clean people's reticular activating systems and clean out the fluoridation in their brain, because you know the type of supplements that'll do that. But it's just like, dude, chill out, get good on this, and then you can add that later. Because you're going to get, if you don't have A's in this category yet, and this is kind of what I'm getting at, because I'm sure some entrepreneurs are listening, I'm just like, oh, you're a bitch, dude, just start the company, right? But if you're not getting A's in the category that you're currently in, you're sure as shit not going to get A's in the category that you're currently doing, right? And I think that's important. McConaughey talks about this a lot, and the big stage in his career was when he had to say no to romantic comedies because he had to rebrand himself. So he went on like a dry season of like 2 to 3 years of not getting any offers, and then boom, once he committed to that, that's when he started to get the Dallas Buyers Club. He started to get all these other roles, the gentlemen, that were like more in line with what he wanted to do. So let's talk about Biochar. So when you first talked about this, I had no fucking clue what Biochar is. I'm sure 98% of the listeners have no idea what Biochar is. So what is Biochar? Why is it important? And why are you so passionate about it?
Yeah, so quick story. We're growing hemp in 2023. I was doing solar, but we're still doing hemp, and I was still planting these seeds and stuff. And we did our first like relatively large scale hemp project for industrial hemp. So, you have 4 types of cannabis. You have synthetic cannabis, which is the terrible stuff you get at gas stations. And for anybody listening, do not buy that type of product at a gas station. The Delta 8, the Delta 0, 50% of it or more is not being tested. You have heavy metals. There's fentanyl in that stuff. And I know somebody recently lost their life for that. So be careful with synthetic cannabis. Then you have medical cannabis, which is the THC, 35%, the stuff that gets you high and you get prescribed for. Then you have CBD hemp, which is growing hemp for the pharmaceuticals, the lotions, the flower, the mellowing out, the inflammation. And then the last one, which is the oldest, is industrial hemp. So, Christopher Columbus would not have been able to sell across, the ocean if his sails were not hemp fabric. The ropes were made out of hemp. The founding fathers required, I believe, Pennsylvania to grow 10 acres during the war. You had to grow hemp. And so we're very serious about growing this hemp, and we're very excited about having 6 acres, 9 acres in the ground, which was a lot. But we did it without irrigation and without really knowing what we were doing. And after 66 days into the hemp grow, we had some hemp growing bits and pieces, but there was one particular area where the hemp was 12 feet tall in 66 days, 12 feet tall. So we went into this field, and it was about the size of, a 12 by 12 apartment. And we realized that the dirt was just moist and like rich. And so we dug into the dirt, we grabbed the dirt, and we realized it was where an old citrus burn pile was. So it was full of ash and carbon. So we're like, what? I've always, since I actually have it written down in my room, in 2020, I wrote, find a alternative for the dead citrus trees rather than burn them. That's when I found out about biochar. So it was like mid-2023. And biochar is the oldest new thing that you've never heard of. So how biochar was created, back during the Spanish conquistador days when they were traveling through South America. They were actually in the high Andes in Brazil. And, some of them were required to go find supplies, so they went east, and they were the first Spanish to get into the Amazon basin. And this monk, his name was Father Carvajal, who wrote a book about the Amazon. He talked about this ancient civilization that was in the rainforest that was massive, and he wrote a book about it, or he journaled about it. 150 years later, people came back. They couldn't find this civilization, so they were just like, whatever. In the 1990s, another group of researchers went back to where he was at and found remnants of a civilization. And they found these plots of land around areas that were where civilizations were, like next to rivers, on high points. And these plots of land had exceptional forests on it. Like, there was really night and day different from where there was some areas and some that weren't. And they realized that when they dug down into the soil was black, rich dirt. And they did tests, and that was where they found this carbon called biochar. So back in the day, whenever they were burning stuff, they would use that ash, and tens of thousands of acres, they would apply this ash. And what's really cool about it, which shows like the value of this material, is 400 years later, that material was still in the ground. It didn't wash away. It didn't get sucked away. Like, it was still there. So it's to create biochar, it's basically you heat up wood without the presence of oxygen, and all the gases, the heavy metals, everything is released from that wood, and then what you have left is carbon. And this carbon, biochar, you go into your refrigerator, you're going to have a activated carbon filter in your fridge. That could be made from biochar. You have, there's toothbrushes that are made out of charcoal. It's basically an activated charcoal, but it holds 6 times its weight in water. So on our test, when we first pulled it out of the machine, it weighed 650 pounds a yard. And yesterday I weighed it and it was 450 pounds. So basically all that water was captured, but it's still in there. It's still 30% water. So if you're using it for land remediation, imagine not having to water your land as much as it used to. And it holds 1 gram. And let me know if I'm confusing you. Does all that make sense so far?
It's making sense to me. If it's making sense to me, it's most likely making sense to most other people too, because I'm a monkey.
Well, I mean, on a broad scale, if we consciously applied biochar on all the available land on the planet, consciously, like, you got to be careful with the application amounts. It's a carbon negative material, meaning if we did that, I don't know how many tons it will require, but if we put biochar all over the world, it would reduce climate change. It absorbs more carbon in the air than it requires to break down into the earth. That material from 400 years ago is still being used today because it doesn't break down. It's a
Wow. What about me kind of just thinking, I guess, devil's advocate? What about the actual burning of it though? Like when you're actually burning of it.
This machine that we got, I've been looking at machines for 2 years now, and a lot of them are just magic shiny boxes. One thing led to another, and we got connected with Tiger Cat. And Tiger Cat is the world's largest wood clearing, or I guess, what's what, 90% wood reduction company. California, right? All these fires. They're cutting down trees, they're processing that wood, and then they're shipping a 40-ton tree. They're chipping it still weighs 40 tons, and then they're hauling that material out. So this Tiger Cat machine is designed to reduce volume of wood by 90%. What happens is you have all these machines that create biochar, they utilize the heat inside of it to either put that heat, recirculate the heat, or put it into a syngas compartment to power us. These machines can power cities because of the heat that they're using.
Wow.
There's a really cool documentary called Kiss the Ground, or The Need to Grow. Kiss the Ground or Need to Grow. Bless you.
Thank you.
It talks about a group in North or South Dakota that had a machine that actually powered 18 houses. So, and it's by utilizing wood waste, and then the heat is circular. So
So you could actually, with your machine, you could power your airport?
Not this machine, but a machine that we're working on, yes.
Why, like, as you're speaking, I mean, like, why isn't more people doing this?
That is, so it's all about scale, and it requires a lot of money to move wood from one site in the woods to an airport. It requires a lot of upfront capital and to get these projects off the ground. And the technology is not like readily available and proven yet for banks. Like we went to DC in March and we had an $11 million ask for a stationary facility at the airport. And we had 5 banks in one day. We had Morgan Stanley, Charles Schwab, RBC Capital, Barclay, and another one I can't pronounce the name of. And their total evaluation was probably $500 billion. RCB alone is $138 billion. And even these banks are just like, this is project development.
Can you just from my monkey brain, what do you mean by your CB is 138 billion?
Our RCB Capital.
Oh, okay. So that's a bank, RCB Capital.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said our, like yours, your CB. That's what got me confused. Okay.
No, great. Thank you for letting me clarify that. Yeah. So these banks that have this money for these projects, we're basically like, this is great. We don't do project development funding. Come back next year and add another 0. Make it 100 million, and we'll look into it. It's pretty much
it was too small for them. The 11 million was too small for them.
And
do you feel like you could reach that goal of getting to the ask of 100 million by next year?
One day at a time is my first thought.
Yeah.
There's I don't know if we need $100 million unless we had multiple airports. It depends, my finance, and I'm super blessed to have a great team. I got financing, science, quality control. What I like to explain is I'm playing tic-tac-toe. My finance guy's playing chess. So I'm just trying to make sure we get this operation down to a science, prove the concept, and there's a chance for us to get this funding moving forward. But this particular machine that we have, the TigerCat 6040 carbonizer, is a patented technology by TigerCat, and it uses an air curtain that heats the inside of this furnace up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And the heat is basically being vortexed around inside of this chamber, and then underneath that, there's another secondary combustion chamber. So it does some type of physical and chemical reaction to where out the back is produced this biochar, and we got our results back, and we had 85% carbon, which is, there's no other company in the Southeast that has 85% carbon, if not in the United States. And most biochar is coming from Oregon, and we're just ready to hit the ground running with this machine. We submitted the funding last week. Basically put $1.5 million on my credit, and we'll see what happens.
Goddamn. So the type of people that would want biochar, is it like a farm? Is it people that are like, who are the type of people that would actually benefit from this biochar? Or organizations or companies?
I'll probably try to put in like 4 industries. The first one being carbon credits. So carbon credits in Florida, it's kind of like fugazi. But we do have a partner that is going to provide capital infusion in the next 3 weeks, a large amount of money for us to get the project rolling. And then after 1,000 tons is produced, we'll be able to receive carbon credits. And I know at least half, if not more, of the majority of carbon credits sold across the world last year were for biochar. Every ton of biochar produced pulls in 3 tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So that's the first one. The second one would be for land and soil.
So the Leonardo DiCaprios are loving this.
Yeah, Leonardo, Microsoft has put like tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, into this. We'll get there in a very near future with those guys.
And that's it's cool to think that, because it's very long term. We're never not gonna want to make the earth a better place and have reduced carbon footprint, and especially with the growth of society, more carbon. So yeah, impressive.
Last year, I thought we'd be on a way quicker projection with, the Earth's state of environment with climate change. I'm still pretty concerned. I mean, if you're replacing carbon absorbing trees with concrete, that's not porous concrete. You're literally offsetting any chance of oxygen in that area. So if Florida was turned into New York City, we're losing 120 acres of agricultural land a day in Florida. That's 2.2 million acres by 2070. If all that's turned into concrete, where are we going to get our oxygen? And if that's, and I know it sounds crazy because we have a big ass planet, but it's not something that is. So, I say that, but like the second industry is infrastructure, concrete. You put biochar in with concrete, 5%, suddenly your concrete is able to absorb carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. It's able to absorb PFAS, heavy metals that are draining through that concrete, going to lakes and aquifers. So concrete's a big one. Soil, which is where we're going to start because it's readily available. Soil, if you put it in with your soil, you only need 5%. So 5% biochar mixed in. If you have 5 gallons of soil and you put in, 2 quarts of biochar, that is enough to create an entirely new ecosystem in that soil. And keep in mind, soil is living. We just have been neglecting it for 40 or 50 years. 1 gram of soil has more microorganisms in it than the entire human population on this planet. So if you put biochar in with the soil, it acts like a carbon condominium where the microbes, get nice and comfortable in this biochar, and then the plants, they're microorganisms. So what do? They reproduce. So you're creating an ecosystem of living organisms in this dirt that the plants can eat on. And on top of that, talking about the carbon condominium, 1 gram of biochar, our biochar, has 280 meters of surface area. So 1 gram.
Break that down for my monkey brain.
1 gram of biochar has about. All right, there is an example of 1 gram being the same as 4 football fields. I don't know if ours is that scale, maybe 2 football fields. I don't know how many. I'm not a meter guy, I'm a foot guy, but it's
damn, that's gangster.
It's substantial, the amount of available space is in this biochar. So if you're spraying fertilizer, you can reduce your fertilizer inputs 30% according to some white papers. So you're saving money on fertilizer, and on the climate side, rather than spraying phosphorus, which causes blue-green algae, which is a massive concern for Florida, rather than spraying that and letting it leach into the Florida aquifer, this biochar will capture that phosphorus for 400 years, just like what they did in Brazil. So it's a stable form of carbon that's carbon negative. So not only does it absorb carbon, it stores that carbon and all these other things for hundreds of years. So
you can actually, and to go back a step, and excuse my interruption, you can create roads with biochar.
my
And
biochar.
those roads would be carbon. Those roads would actually have a carbon offset. So if all of New York was with biochar roads, the air would actually be cleaner, and maybe Los Angeles too, because the smog. Would it help with the smog problem?
They say it's a university, and I'm working with every daggum university in the nation. University of Miami, they're doing a project with. Let me see if I can find it really quickly.
And while you look for that, the reason why this got me thinking is I was at the airport in what's the country that makes all the chips near China? It's kind of like an island, small. God.
Well, we'll be talking
Taipei.
about we'll be talking about chips in a second. I can't find the no, but it's like 5%. Mixing it in 5% with your concrete increases the climate resilience by like 40 to 50%. I'll send it to you when I find it. And also it strengthens it as well. So it's really good for concrete, airports, any type of place that has a lot of traction on it. But the next application is for water filtration. So we have a project with a university down in South Florida. And we actually have a project with 3 different universities from South Florida. But this one particular one is with the city in South Florida, as well as a nonprofit called Residents for Resilience. And the queen of that nonprofit, Susie, we got MRSA as she was paddleboarding in Fort Lauderdale.
She got what?
MRSA, which is just like a bacteria that kicks your butt, makes you sick. Mm-hmm. And the waters down there are not doing too hot. The city is trying to find solutions. We're trying to provide them sustainable, eco-friendly solutions. But there's a company in North Florida that we're working with, and they want 30,000 cubic yards of biochar a year. If they put it, they're funded by the state, tens of millions of dollars. They have a 11-acre estuary, a nature preserve that they created, and in this nature preserve is biochar. It filters 10 million gallons of water a day, and it absorbs 99.9% of the phosphorus that goes through their filtration. So that's how they get paid. So you can put these things in bio buoys, which we trademarked, into the water, and then pull it out of the water. It's got all these fertilizers in it. What do you do when it's out of the water? You put it back into the soil. So then you have a fully circular, and this product is created from wood that was intended to be burned. So we're no longer burning the wood, we're turning it into a stable form of carbon that filters the water and then revitalizes the soil.
Wow. You got me with that. You remember China? Remember how China was talking about her company that's utilizing kelp to regenerate, these rovers that helps regenerate kelp, and that actually helps with the oxygen. You got me thinking. I'd be intrigued to connect you with China, see if there's any, because she's really starting to blow this up now. See if there's any co-collaboration there. But I want to. So back to that country I was talking about. I don't know why I can't remember the name. It's a tiny country. Singapore. God. So Singapore, what they do is they actually utilize their roads they recycle all their plastic and they utilize their roads. And it's like, oh, Singapore is so smart. But what's got me thinking is like, yeah, but is that actually helping offsetting carbon at all? No, it's plastic. So what would be really smart is for a country or a nation or whatever, even a city or a state, to do this throughout the whole state, to regenerate all of their roads through something that's carbon offsetting. I mean, it's just like, it's got to be because of money, right? Like why they're not doing it now, because these higher powers have definitely thought about this.
Dude, I had a picture in my head at some point in the past 2 years. It's like we're cutting down trees to, imagine a forest, and you're cutting down trees to make a road. And as you're cutting them down, it's literally being cut, processed, and then out the back of the butt of this machine is porous concrete. And it's just like a one-step machine that just does this. And it's possible, because heat can power a lot of different things. And if you can find the way through physics, which is out of my sphere, to capture that heat and push it to another machine to run itself, you're doing something that is revolutionary. And so I think money's involved. I think big, if there's, no offense Duke Energy, but if Duke Energy found out that I can make a machine that can power my entire community, they'd be pretty upset too. In Florida, as you can't sell power back to the utility companies. And fertilizer companies, nobody wants to hear that I can reduce fertilizer inputs by 30%. And, everything, I've been very involved in politics, and it's just like you gotta pay to play. And
Yeah.
we've been very fortunate to play as much as we've been playing without having to pay practically anything. It's just word of mouth and the right connections. I was able to sit down with a senator 2 weeks ago who recommended sitting down with the largest soil manufacturer in the state. And I reached out to them saying, hey, this guy recommended I sit down with you. Sat down with him on Tuesday, and somehow they know my family. So it's just like full circle, a lot of luck, a lot of relationships in Florida that kind of, if you've been shooting your shot for 5 years, eventually you start to recognize names and picture where things should go. So
Yeah. Kind of excuse my interruption, kind of maybe esoteric question, but are you worried that like by you creating this, that could maybe, like, think of Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla created something that basically created free power for the whole world. And higher corporations did not let that go through. Whatever, maybe higher powers offed them. Who knows what actually happened? I don't know too much about that story, but I do know he created this machine. But people that were making money, like Duke Energy, for example, you come in, it's like, hey, Duke, guess what? I created a way that we can have energy that's actually good for the environment, carbon offsetting, and it's going to be cheaper. Oh, you know what? Duke Energy is going to pay to have Zack Farr offed because, and I know like this is kind of a crazy way to think about it, but it's honestly the truth. It's the reality. Like, have you thought about that? And have you like kind of help me understand that?
So one of those two movies I mentioned is, I think it's Need to Grow. In it, they got this beautiful processing facility. They're powering 18 houses. Everybody, like, the joy is immaculate. They get a call at night. Their entire facility caught on fire, burned to the ground. Coincidence? So, have I thought about all that stuff? I mean, yeah. I feel like I think that energy is still going to be deregulated at some point, whether it's a small modular reactor and that's the size of a microwave in the kitchen, which is not too far away, or these types of machines or solar or whatever. So I'm hoping that happens regardless, and if so, I'm not too worried. It's been a thought. I just don't think. That type of problem would be great to have, because if I've made that type of solution, then I'm probably, making enough money to have my own, security blanket.
Yeah.
The bulletproof vest. And it's just, you got to
You
play
kind of
the
prepare
game.
for that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't. I asked it just because I was curious your opinion, but you can't let that deteriorate you from moving forward, right? Because no matter what you do, there's always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be people trying to burn down your operation, whether that's mentally or through actual physical fire.
Yeah, I've been going through a little bit of that recently. I've had to, make some apologies for, miswording. Like, I spoke in front of the House of Representatives in March, explaining what hemp is, and I said some things wrong about this project I did with a university, and the president reached out and was just like, hey, what about this? Like, oh, my staff's upset about it. It's like, your staff can cry me a river. Like, lions don't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep, and there's always going to be those types of people, and that is just life. So
Lions don't
if
lose sleep over the opinions of sheep.
it doesn't make
I like
sense to
that.
me, because it used to not make sense to me, because I was like, when does a lion interfere with a sheep? But then, watching the story of the House of David, you realize that lions actually tear up sheep all the time. So I like it a lot. You just got to believe in your mission, because the last, not the last product that this can create, but it's actually a call I had today that's been pretty fascinating, is we're getting to the point now where this pyrolysis technology, pyrolysis is like high efficient, high quality biochar in an enclosed chamber where you guarantee get gases that can power things. So like these machines with the right process can create graphene. And that graphene, which, Trump shut down China importing graphene last year, that graphene can be used for supercapacitors, for chips, for wafers, for
Ding, ding,
missiles.
ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
This whole time I'm like, how are we going to get Trump on board with this? Here we go.
He'll eat it up. Like it's and the cool thing is like in a biochar industry, some of the challenges are feedstock, in feedstock logistics, purchaser, and permitting. But I got 200,000 acres of dead citrus. That's 2 million tons of wood. I got 150,000 tons of wood at one location. We get a hurricane every year that creates 1 million tons of wood waste in the state of Florida. I can get 500,000 tons. If somebody gave me, $1.5 million, I could have 500,000 tons of material sitting anywhere in the state of Florida with one phone call in a day. So we have enough wood to put these types of machines every 50 to 100 miles across the state of Florida, creating 5 cubic yards of biochar an hour per machine, which can then be used for soil, water, plastics, graphene, supercapacitors. It's the mission's always been to support America's transition into a bioeconomy, to where we're not having to be so lenient on Canada peat, right? Like peat is a non-healthy thing for the environment. Biochar can replace peat. Graphene, it's all coming from China. We're mining for graphene, making it a rare earth metal. Rather, we can create the exact same graphene in Florida, utilizing wood waste with the right technology. And that type of technology and that CapEx is, less than 8 figures. So, it's 7 figures, but 7 figures is not too bad when you're looking at something that can, if I had enough equipment to match my purchase orders like today, we'd be making, $12 million this year. I just don't have that equipment. And that doesn't include carbon credits. So then you're going to add another, $4 million on top of that. So it's, we're just starting with this Tiger Cat, and Tiger Cat fully on board. They're based out of Canada. They want to come down and do the content because we got a great story behind what we're doing, trying to, revitalize rural communities with innovative agricultural solutions. It's a pretty cool thing. And I think I'm just most excited about having the chance to like build a team again, kind of like in solar. Mm-hmm. And I got 2 kids on my team. They're 20 years old and they're operating $200,000 pieces of equipment, and they're just having the time of their life. So one of them is actually in my 21-day mindfulness group, and kid's had a tough life, really tough life, and he's saying, like he said, day 3 done last night at 1 o'clock in the morning, and being able to teach mindfulness and get that incorporated into the local schools around here would be my next intention with everything that we're doing.
Yeah, gives a good purpose behind it. There's this we'll finish on this. There's this strange anomaly, Zach, in the world where you see people that when they find their purpose, it connects and it's closely to their last name. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but I can't think of any examples, but there's people like their last name will be intertwined with the legacy that they've created. It's very weird, but it's interesting that Farr and Char are closely related. So it gives me it just makes me laugh with that strange anomaly. I'll think of someone, I'll add them to the description here. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. But Zach, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for informing us, and thank you for the vulnerability in the beginning about your story. I think that's what really makes these most interesting for me, is to really learn about people I think I know, but then when we do these, we get to actually really know a lot more about them. and keep on moving forward with what you're doing. I see the passion. I see it on a daily basis with what you're doing, and it's cool to somewhat be a part of this journey with you. And I'm very excited for us to look back on this podcast and maybe 5 years and 10 years, and be like, wow, look how far we've come, and when we'll do another one then.
Yeah.
So with
No,
that
I
being
appreciate
said,
that, man. Like, thankful for everything you've been doing too, and looking forward to continuing to support you how I can too. Appreciate you setting this up. It's been fun.
absolutely. And how can people connect with you and connect with like the mission?
So our website, www.biotechappliedresearch.org, is currently being revamped. You should still be able to subscribe there, and we're going to have a lot of updates. And then, my Instagram is at Biochar. So kind of like what you said.
Easy, yeah.
And I got to get better at creating content. I've just been it's something I got to do, not for myself, but for, the community and what we're doing here. So yeah, appreciate you
Cool.
asking.
And I'll tag that below, everybody. But Zach, thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
See you, brother.